Right. And what inspired you to make a Batman family game without Batman? I mean, it's a Batman game. Why is there
Right.
no Batman?
Well, I mean, a couple things, like in terms of inspiration. I mean, one thing that's great about the Batman universe and about the Batman family is that you have this incredible, like 70, 80-year legacy of his sidekicks and his allies and the people who have kind of accumulated around Batman as crime fighters. And a lot of them kind of graduate from the Batman school of crime fighting. So there's this kind of a shared DNA there, but they also have their own unique style, their own approach, their own philosophy, their own background and backstories. They're not all billionaires, you know. And I think what's interesting about a lot of those characters is the amount of growth that they get to go through from where they start to when they become these fully realized superheroes in the Batman universe. And for me, when I see that, I see a game opportunity there. I say, I want to put myself in the shoes of a character who isn't necessarily perfect. They're not a paragon. They're not a billionaire science ninja who speaks all the languages and can fly a space shuttle. There's somebody who is like fighting and struggling to survive and to get the resources they need and to stay maybe on the right side of the cops and make the citizens not scared of them. That's a great starting point. And to be able to let the players live that out and control it and evolve it the way they want to evolve it, I think is super cool.
Okay, and does Gotham Knights have any relationship to the Batman Arkham series? Because I'm kind of trying to understand the timeline right now.
Right. So narratively, not at all. It's a completely different universe. And I mean, this is one of the things that's great about playing in the sort of the DC universe bucket is that, there's room for all of these different interpretations. We see it, with everything from the Injustice series to the Telltale Batman games to the Arkham series. It's possible for us to take a slightly different spin on the same universe and a lot of the same characters and come up with something fresh for it. So that was really something that we set out to do, is like we wanted to redefine Gotham City and define its history and use that as a way of opening things up for exploration and creating a different kind of story as well as a different kind of game experience.
All right. So who are the four main characters? Can you tell us about Batgirl, Nightwing, Red Hood, and Robin?
Yeah, definitely. So let's start with Batgirl. So this is Barbara Gordon. She's the daughter of the former police commissioner, James Gordon, who lots of people know. In our universe, Jim Gordon died in the line of duty a couple of years before the events of the game. So that obviously had a huge impact on her as a crime fighter. Our version of Barbara Gordon spent time as Oracle. So she suffered a very serious injury that robbed her of her mobility, but she was able to reinvent herself as a different kind of crime fighter for a period of time. And then after, many painful surgeries and years of rehabilitation and pain management and all the things that she needed to do, she's finally been able to get back on her feet. But she has really evolved and changed as a result of that experience. She's incorporated the things that she's learned as Oracle into how she fights crime. And so while she's a relentless street fighter who's able to take down enemies, especially one enemy at a time, she also has access to kind of hacking abilities and technology skills that she can apply as a kind of a force multiplier in combat. We have the first Robin is Dick Grayson, who has now been reinvented as Nightwing, of course. He's kind of the big brother of the group. And of course, stylistically, he's a swashbuckler. He's funny. He's a kind of flamboyant, ping-ponging fighter who can take on lots of different enemies at once and do it with flair and with a smile and with a joke. But also from a co-op perspective, because of course you can play our whole game in two-player co-op if you want. He is the natural leader, and that translates into buffing his teammates in co-op. And so that's a very important, powerful tool for you if you go down that particular path of the game. Red Hood is Jason Todd, and he was the second Robin. So after Dick left, Batman had brought in this other kid. He was a little too reckless, a little too hasty with how he put him in the street, and he got himself killed. He was famously beaten to death by the Joker. And for a while, it seemed like that was the end of his story. But then under mysterious circumstances, enemies of Batman's resurrected Jason, robbed him of his memory, brought him back, kind of weaponized his anger and sent him to Gotham City, where he reinvented himself as this kind of lethal gun-wielding vigilante, the Red Hood, putting him at odds with Batman. Well, in our world, he's now tried to redeem himself. He's kind of put himself back on the straight and narrow. And what's great is in our storyline, he starts to discover some things about how he was resurrected that allow him to unlock certain parts of his progressions, new abilities, allowing him to kind of evolve and change the style of superhero that he is. And then finally, we have the newest Robin. He's young, he's a teenager, he's still essentially a high school student, but he is the strongest natural detective of the group. Even Batman at one point had said, you're a better detective than I am. And so Tim has this kind of almost preternatural deductive ability. In game terms, he's also our stealth-focused character. So he has a lot of tools and a lot of skills that relate to being able to move in a really stealthy way. And kind of over time, he sort of reinvents himself as this kind of vengeful specter that's haunting the streets and alleyways of Gotham. And he really uses a lot of tools around like status effects and manipulating and messing with the AI as a way of fighting crime, as sort of his equalizer.
Cool. And why did you choose these particular Batman family characters? Why those four?
Right. I mean, and this, of course, is a huge ongoing challenge because the Batman family is massive and there's a lot of amazing, rich characters that, we'd love to have a chance to play with. These four we came at for a few reasons. Part of it was we knew narratively, given that we were kicking things off with the death of Batman, we wanted to go to kind of the first set of characters in the Batman family, like the original early members of the Batman family, and kind of allow them to respond to that change, that new status quo, and to the death of their mentor. I think the other part of it is we looked at these four in terms of stylistically of what they bring to gameplay. They really have a very different flavor, and we wanted to make sure that they could continue to have real differences. We didn't want them to just all kind of slowly turn into the same Dark Knight replacement. We wanted them to all feel like they continue to evolve in these four really distinct directions. And this particular group of four let us do that. And also, frankly, like we worked very heavily very closely with DC Comics directly to talk about the types of characters that we wanted to include and think about kind of what interpretation of these four classic heroes we wanted to bring to the game.
Cool. So Gotham Knights is an action RPG game. How will these characters evolve throughout the gameplay experience? Is there a leveling system, skill trees, and what about choices? There will be choices to change the course of the plot. Anyway, how will the RPG structure work in this universe?
Right. So, we're going to have a lot of detailed breakdowns of like all the various game economies and progressions in the future. But I'll give you the high level. And the high level is the player does level up, and as they level up, they gain the ability to unlock unique abilities in their ability tree. And it'll be familiar to people who've played action RPGs. They'll understand that, the trees are divided up into branches that are connected to certain aspects of the character, and you'll have an opportunity to expand and extend those with new abilities that are related to those characters. And then there's also abilities that really reflect the point where the player is evolving into Gotham City's new Dark Knight. So if you continue to push a character down that path, you'll have access to those kind of next level of abilities that let you do that next tier of superheroics. That's on the ability side. Then we have our gear, and the gear system is focused on three main components for each of the characters. You have your suit, you have your melee weapon, and you have your ranged weapon. And they're all distinct, obviously, for each of the four characters. By upgrading these suits, you're gaining certain abilities. You're gaining some benefits in terms of armor, in terms of your traversal style and mobility. You're gaining the ability to apply certain kinds of damage types and status effects to your weapons, for example. And what that allows you to do is really manage and pick your loadout to match the kinds of threats and challenges that you're going up against. So whether it's fighting crime in the street or dealing with a particular criminal faction that are armed with certain kinds of weapons, or going up against a particular villain that you know you're going to finally have your showdown with and take down, you're going to be able to make choices strategically about the kinds of gear that you use and the specific abilities that come with that. And then, of course, there's an element of personalization and your look and your style. That's also there. It's present as well. And it's on a separate layer from the gameplay effects. It's something that allows you to kind of unlock new skins and new suit styles and new accessories that go with those styles to really, personalize the look of your character the way you want.
It sounds great. Gotham Knights is a playable solo, but can also be played in 2 players online co-op. How
Correct.
does that fit into the game's thematic? How does it work?
So it's a great question, because obviously the Batman family is by its very nature this kind of band of people who have been brought together by their proximity to this famously very solitary crime fighter, right? And a lot of the fight experiences and adventure experiences that we've seen in the Batman games have been about him as the solitary, brooding crime fighter. So for us, we wanted to preserve a lot of those elements, but we knew that there was a component of the fantasy that was about the team up. It was about what happens when a couple of superheroes who know each other and have worked together in the past and have some shared history kind of cross paths with each other because they're both going after the same guy, the same bad guy, and they decide to, okay, let's team up and join forces on this. We wanted to deliver that piece of the fantasy because we felt like it was something that was new and was exciting and that people were hungry for. People who are DC fans in particular. So the way we support that is there are a number of game mechanics that are designed to have additional value when you're playing in co-op. So like if I'm tagging enemies, this is an obvious example. If my friend falls in battle, I can go and revive them. It's all the usual stuff. But then on top of that, some of my abilities end up having additional value in co-op play. They allow me to buff my teammates and provide them with benefits and kind of overclock some of their abilities. It allows me to help them out when they're dealing with enemies that maybe they have more vulnerability to. But then we also have those big, meaty co-op moves that are only possible when I'm playing with another person, which is, being able to work an enemy over and get a hold of them. And then when my teammate is in a good position to do it, they can set them up for a finisher. And it's a good, satisfying, spectacular co-op beat. So I think all of those things pay off a part of the comic book fantasy that we felt was really ripe for exploration with Gotham Knights. And with this particular group of 4, you can start to see those combinations being a natural outgrowth of their relationships with each other, the training that they've done together, past adventures. It all kind of makes sense, and it's a natural fit.
Wow, it seems pretty cool. Thank you very much, Patrick, for your time, and I wish you guys an awesome final year of development on this project. And thank you, CCXP fans, for joining us. Keep an eye out for more news about Gotham Knights coming to PS5, PS4, Xbox Series, Xbox One, consoles, and PC in 2021.